To discuss more about the Belt and Road Initiative, we're now joined by John Gong. He is a China forum expert and professor at the University of International Business and Economics. John, thanks very much. I appreciate you coming on chatting with us.
Thank you.
I want to begin by talking about 10 years. Do you think that when this was announced a decade ago, globally, people thought it was going to be such an influence, such a force that it has become?
Well, I think it exceeded well beyond expectation. I think about 10 years ago when this concept was first introduced, people have never imagined the economic impact that's going to be having on these countries that are hosting the Belt and Road Initiative. I think there's ample empirical evidence in the economics area, in trade, in the studying trade area, that these infrastructures contribute immensely towards trade between these countries and China, as well as actually investment from China, including other countries as well, in these countries. This is something that is entirely new in the history of trade. And I think another thing I want to point out that through this vast investments in the infrastructure in these countries, China, of course, benefits a lot from this, particularly corporate China. In a sense, corporate China is going overseas. It's essentially nearly, in my view, a global commercial network. And this has been done really peacefully. And this, compared to concepts like Britannica, Americana, Mongolica, these huge commercial empires that was once backed by force.
Right.
This was the first time that this is done on a global scale, really through peace. And I think this is the best example to testify to the concept that peaceful rise of China.
John, let's talk about a couple of numbers that are being tossed around. More than, I think, 460,000 jobs have been created, also credited with lifting millions out of poverty, coming on the heels of President Xi's long-stated goal of lifting China out of poverty. It really says a great deal. And while we look back at 10 years, it's a great time to look forward because there's so much going on.
Yeah, absolutely. These investments create jobs, and trade will follow. Trade creates another round of jobs. I mean, there are many examples like this. Particularly, I would say, in African countries, in some poor, South American countries. This reminds me of what happened in the 1990s when American, European companies and other Asian companies like from South Korea, from Japan, they came to China. These are foreign direct investments, and they create jobs. And after some time, China's economy really benefit from this. This is exactly what's happening right now. Other than that, China is at the other side of the table. We are seeing Chinese companies going to these countries, making foreign direct investments, setting up factory operations, employing jobs, and bring a lot of goods actually exported from these countries back to China. Exactly like in the 1990s. And even today, American companies are still doing this in China. And it benefits both ways, in my view, of course, right?
And I think a bit earlier in our interview, you also alluded to colonialism that happened over the centuries as well. No secret that Western nations have certainly taken shots at the BRI, saying that it's really not doing everything that has been promised and runs the risk of saddling certain nations with a lot of debt. How do you counter that argument?
Well, first of all, the analogy to colonialism, in my view, is totally outrageous. As I alluded to earlier, this has been done, purely through market force, purely through bilateral negotiations. I mean, China is not holding any gun at its country. It's not backed by Marine Corps or by French regions, by foreign regions, or by the Royal Navy, right? I mean, this is all based on bilateral, fair and equitable negotiations. So I think that the comparison with colonialism is totally wrong. With respect to the issue about debt trap, again, the idea of debt trap is based on on conspiracy theory. It's premised upon the assumption that the other side is totally stupid, knowing that eventually this is going to get into a trap, and the other side still gets into a deal like this. I mean, this is an insult to people's intelligence, and I think the idea of a conspiracy at the very beginning, alluding these people, the other side investors get into this, eventually take it over. It's totally ludicrous. I mean, how can people accept a deal like this? In hindsight, of course, some deals went wrong, get into problems. I mean, that's always a probabilistic event. I mean, we don't expect every deal will be successful in the end. So I think the idea that this is a conspiracy theory, it's a death trap, it's just totally nonsense to me.
Well, John, I certainly appreciate your very frank answers for us as well, and I'm looking forward to the gathering next month in China as well to see what these 90-some nations do have to talk about. John Gong, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.